Namaste. Welcome to Sacred Sunday Sadhana. Today I wanted to talk about struggle, control, and ultimately surrendering to love. If you can get outside today, or position yourself inside somewhere that you can see the outside. It's imperative that we continue connecting to the earth, especially as the days get shorter and shorter, or the sunlight provided to the earth lasts for a shorter and shorter time during this season. Settle into your body. And usually I suggest using your breath to settle in, but maybe there's a different awareness that you can use. I've been enjoying watching Midnight Gospel, Pendleton Ward's cartoon that came out last year, and just last night we watched an episode about the main character was interviewing his mom, and she was guiding him to have a sense of his body, to get presence by just noticing what you feel. So a lot of times in the yoga classroom, we talk about coming into the present moment, using your five senses. What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? How does the air feel on your skin? And what do you see? Sight is kind of an overused sense, so it's good to do that one last. But another way to frame that for yourself is, what does this moment taste like? What does this exact moment sound like? What does it feel like? So, use your breath to center and ground yourself. And I'm literally on the ground. I've got some ferns beside me. I'm leaning against this beautiful tree that's been repurposed as it fell to the forest floor. So I'm grounding down into the earth. And remember, as we ground ourselves down, Gaia, the earth, reaches up in support of you. So it's not all this effort. There's a lot of ease as well. As we effort down, we're also receiving the ease of being held from the earth. And take a moment, using your senses, or perhaps just using your proprioception to notice where you are in time and space. And when you get into that feeling self, the mind ceases to control talking about or describing for you what's happening, and instead you get to actually be in that moment instead of just telling yourself what the moment is like, if that makes sense. So, I have had some struggle this week, and I know that that's the true pandemic right now, is fear and struggle. It's ever present. And I've had to return to those very basic principles of yoga, which really, for me, a spiritual practice isn't just something that I try to make time for when I can, It's not like working out. Like, I do sit-ups 3 or 4 times a week when I can fit it in. But for me, my spiritual practice can't be like that. I've got to be living it. I've got to be breathing it. I've got to be using it from breath to breath to breath in order to feel alive, in order to stay in alignment with my true self, with God, with whatever it is that you call the bigness that's outside of yourself, that you're a part of. In order to stay connected to that, it's important to have presence and to have awareness. And I've been using the 5 koshas, noticing what my body feels like, my physical body, noticing the quality of my thoughts and emotions. That's the Manomaya kosha, noticing the energetics of my body. That's the Pranamaya kosha, noticing the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is that wisdom body. It's that space where we hang out when we're meditating, when we're observing. We are always the observer and the observed. And you can sit with just that sentence for years and years and years and continue to just unpack more and more from that sentiment. And so I encourage you to do that. Even if that's all you take from this video, just think about how you are the seer and the seen. You are a blade of grass with a dewdrop that reflects the entire universe. And you are the entire universe, and your reflection is in a dewdrop on a blade of grass. So just play with the micro and the macrocosms, and know that you are a huge part of both of them. And that this beautiful body that you live in, this perfect body that you have, your body is perfect. You have the perfect form, the perfect function. Your eyelashes catch your sweat, so your body's perfect. That's Regina Spektor. I've got a perfect body, but sometimes I forget. I've got a perfect body, 'cause my eyelashes catch my sweat. Yes, they do. They do. So, when we're talking about struggle, and I feel like struggle, so I've studied struggle from a Buddhist perspective for many years now. How old am I? So 23 years I've been thinking about struggle, and the absence of struggle is really what we, in Buddhism, that's what you're going for. You just want to go with the flow. You want to be in the wu wei. You don't want to go up against what's happening. You just want to join in with what's happening. You don't find a fear and build a wall. You recognize a fear and you invite your fear to tea. You walk right up to it. You sit down with it. You get to know it. You get uncomfortable with it. And in that choosing to be uncomfortable, you begin to get comfortable. So I'm noticing that right now, trying to be in control is what's causing me to struggle. And it's what's causing those in my immediate surroundings to struggle as well, even though it looks different for each of us. I've got this pattern or this habit of, it's one of the 4 agreements is don't make assumptions. And I've got this habit of, because my intuition is so strong and I can sometimes sense what someone else is feeling and thinking, then I sometimes lean into this space where I think I know what someone else is thinking or feeling, and I don't. I'm making a total assumption. And then I'll even take what I think that other person is thinking or feeling, and I'll just run with it, and I'll just create this scenario in my mind. And I get so lost in the maze of what I've created that I start to really believe that that's real, and it's hard to talk myself out of it. So as vague as I'm being, maybe you can recognize that you do that too, or maybe you don't. But we all have this sense of trying to understand what's happening and trying to control it, try to do better. I very recently heard someone say that he needed to control his mind. I've got to control my mind. And that's just not going to happen. There's no such thing. We can't control the mind. We can't. I've heard it said that as human beings, what you can control is your breath. That's it. You can control how you're breathing. Sometimes we can't even control that. Have you ever been really sick and you can't even control your breath? And so in these moments where you realize, I actually can't control my mind, and that doesn't make me weak, it makes me strong by being courageous enough to show up anyway, to say, fuck, I can't control this. I can't stop this thinking mind. But what I can do is notice and accept that I can't control it. And somewhere in that space, in that Vijnanamaya space, in the space of the seer and the seen, this softness starts to form, and the wall starts to get smaller and thinner, and the grip that's causing us to close up and contract allows us to expand and open and soften. And as I've said like 40 times, being open and soft, that's where I want to be. That's where I thrive versus where I survive. I'm surviving in this mode of like controlling, tight, cold, steel, tough. I'm so tough. But really, my true strength comes from when I can be soft and open and vulnerable and just allow my soft, fragile self to say, man, I can't control this. I don't have control of this. There's no such thing as me having control. It's all an illusion. Anytime I've thought that I actually had control of a situation, no, I didn't. No, you don't. So what's the solution then? Like, that might all sound really dismal. And there's a couple of different frames that you can look at it. So again, I'm going to reference Midnight Gospel. In one of the episodes that I watched recently, they were talking about hope and how giving up hope is how this particular individual finally coped with like letting go, with softening, with going with the flow, with entering this true aliveness. If you're not in the woo way, if you're not listening to the flow, if you're not going with your intuition, if you're not going with what's happening, then you're not really alive. You're in this like holding pattern, and you're tight and you're cold and you're hard and you're steel and you're But like, to truly thrive and be alive is to be open and to be soft and to be vulnerable and to be aware and to notice and to expand your awareness beyond that tiny dot. I know we've talked about Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, says that when we get in this space of like controlling, our awareness becomes a postage stamp, becomes the size of a postage stamp. All that we know and all that we see and all that we can really intuit and understand is on this tiny little square in the corner of an envelope. And as we breathe into expansion and open ourselves and soften and allow ourselves to be vulnerable, and it's not easy, it's very simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. As we begin to unfold and unfurl and go into the river, open to the wu way, open to the way of things, open to being wrong, open to being carried away, open to being vulnerable, then our worlds start to expand beyond the envelope, beyond the post office, beyond the earth, just like zooming way out. Can you zoom out? Can you zoom all the way out? How far out can you go? Can you zoom yourself to outer space and notice this tiny little blue dot? If you can, everything seems a lot less important and a lot less scary, just to kind of notice like, oh, it's all kind of insignificant. And so in this moment, this little thing that I want control of, it doesn't matter. And so I started off by saying that's the pessimistic view, is just to let go of hope. There is no hope. Let it go. Just let it go. Let it go. But the optimistic view is to look at it as an expectation. Letting go of the expectation of having control or the expectation of something being like that. Like, can you just allow it to be the way it is? Can you do that? And the tools for doing that are learning how to surrender to love. And I use the word love as a synonym for God, for light, for the universe, for collective consciousness, for whatever word fills in that space for you, that space of a loving, benevolent, spiritual part of all of us, of all that is, of all that was, of all that will be. Whatever that word is for you, and that takes years and years and years to cultivate. So start there. There's so many starting places. It's not linear. You start where you start and you work your way in, and You get all your spokes going until you've got a wheel, and then you can get on your bicycle and ride into the woods and be free. But you can't start anywhere if you're not ready to surrender. And surrender was the last of the 10 yamas and niyamas for me to grasp. You know, I've been working with these since 2013 when I first started my Ayurvedic practitionership. Just working with the yamas and the niyamas, and I'm not going to go through all of those now, but I have 9 of them tattooed on my body, because as I would understand them, I would just put them on my skin for all time, because they're really important to how I live, moment to moment. I don't have my 10th one yet. I want it. It's coming. I have an appointment to get it. And it's going to be on my arm, and it's going to say surrender to love. Isvara pranidhana. It means surrender to God. It means open yourself and allow this big world to be what it is, and trust that you don't understand what's happening. Trust that you, as a human being, cannot possibly conceptualize everything that's going on. And let's make it really specific. Everything that's going on with this pandemic and the economy and where this virus came from and what the vaccine is like and the mandates to control people and all the things. You don't actually have to spend your energy and time worrying about it. You can instead change your worry into curiosity. You can just be really curious. I wonder what humanity's doing with this. We'll see. And you can just trust that there's a lot more than you know that's happening. There's a lot more than any humans know. There's a great energetic cosmic shift, a loving change that's happening, and growth is painful. We are in the middle of growing pains. Do you remember when your shins hurt when you were in maybe middle school? That's when it was for me. I wanted to play basketball when I was in 6th grade, but I was like 4'11". And then in 7th grade, I was 5'6", and my shins hurt. I was growing. I grew 7 inches in like a 9-month period, and it was painful. And this that we're going through on Earth, it's painful. And we don't even know what it's going to be like, and that's scary, and that makes it more painful. But if we can surrender, just open our expansiveness, get really soft, get really vulnerable, get really authentic with ourselves, become more and more loving to ourselves and to those around us, be present with ourselves by noticing what we notice through the 5 senses, be present with those that we love, and be grateful. I'm so grateful for the time I get to spend with other humans. I sometimes now go 7 days without seeing another human. And I love to be alone. But by that 4th day, it wears on me. It starts to wear on me, and I'm so grateful for my cats. I'm so grateful for my cats. I'm grateful for Marco Polo so I can connect to my closest friends. I'm so grateful for this loving relationship that I'm in, so that I'm not going for as long stretches of time without seeing another human. I'm grateful for Zoom so I can be in class with my 15 schoolmates. But it's different than being in person. So gratitude is one of the channels of love. There's 3 that I use. There's probably many, but here are the channels of love. And you can channel these to love yourself, and you can channel these to open your heart and to help you surrender to love, to the greater love. Love isn't just romance. Romance is awesome, yada yada. But love is, I don't know how many words there are to describe love, but I'd like to know. If you know, let me know. How many words are there to describe love? Like, how many different words for love are there in languages that you know? There's so many different kinds of love. Love is such a concept. But the love I'm talking about it's a basic and enormous, all-encompassing power. It's the antidote to fear. Would you like a vaccine to the fear pandemic? It's love. Give yourself that vaccine. I'm not going to get into politics. I think that people who want to have a vaccine for COVID should absolutely get the vaccine for COVID. I think it's beautiful. Go for it. Do it. I think the people that don't want a vaccine should absolutely not have a vaccine. But I think a vaccine that we all need across the board is love. Just pump yourself, inject yourself full of love. Spend every free minute you have filling yourself with love, flooding yourself with love, bathing yourself in love. And the ways that you can do that, if you're like, what the hell does that mean? What do you mean? Well, what do you do for people that you love? Like when you're in the beginning of a relationship, do you write love letters? Write a love letter to yourself. Do you hear all the love songs on the radio? Sing your favorite love songs to yourself and like really dedicate it to yourself and mean it. Embrace gratitude. Gratitude is a channel of love. Compassion is a channel of love. And forgiveness is a channel of love. Gratitude, we've sort of covered that. Compassion is like really just holding yourself the way you would hold a child or a small animal. And just say, hey, I'm going to take care of you. I'm taking care of you. You're okay. We're going to be okay. I don't know how. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I just know you're going to be fine. I'm going to do everything I can to protect you and to hold you, and everything is going to be wonderful. We're just in the middle of growing pains right now. So that's some compassionate self-talk. And then forgiveness is like, I learned this when I was implementing the 12-step program into my life so that I could use it for myself, so that I could understand the addicts in my life, and so that I could be a better yoga of 12-step recovery teacher. Resentment is the poison that keeps us all from being able to forgive ourselves, to forgive other people. So doing a daily scan of like, what am I resentful about? And I'm just gonna let you know, a lot of shit's gonna come up. A lot is gonna come up. You can start back from like as early as you can remember, your first memory. You know, the first time you were spanked, the first time you were cheated on, the first time anyone deceived you, the first time you were lied to, the first time you got left out. Go all the way back and start forgiving every single person and every single situation that occurred without any conditions. Just forgive. And what you're doing, there's a reason that it's called forgive. You're giving yourself. This is a gift for you. This isn't for whoever punched you. This isn't for whoever cheated on you. This isn't for whoever molested you. Forgiving is for you. It's dissolving all the hatred and the pain in your own body that's preventing you from receiving and feeling the love that you have to offer from yourself and from other people, and from God or from love source, whatever you want to call that. So you've got to do it. Like do not delay. Start dissolving that resentment. Just get rid of it. And every day, again and again, again and again, because every day more resentment might pop up. I'm a very defensive person. I have a teenage daughter. Resentment comes up for me every day. And so every evening I have to go through like, what am I resentful about? And every day it gets easier. It gets easier to forgive. It gets easier to clear, until some days like stuff happens and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm not offended by this. I'm not taking this personally. I'm not getting defensive about this. I have no resentment that's forming around this whatsoever. Yay me, good job, yay. So compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, flood yourself in love. Once you can do that, then you're ready to start opening and surrendering to love. Surrender to it, just like open yourself to what may be. Open yourself to trust. Open yourself to the possibility that you're not actually in control of everything. You know, open yourself to the crazy concept that there's a lot more going on than you can understand. Our brains are meant to have this human experience. What a beautiful experience it is. But we are cosmic beings here having this human experience. There's things that we cannot understand. And some of us are more awakened than others of us. Some of us understand things that others of us don't, and there's no reason to build resentment towards those people. People are going to have different opinions than you. People are going to have different truths than you. What's true for them is true. What's true for you is true. You don't get to decide what somebody else lives by. You don't get to decide whether they're right or wrong. All you really need to do, and in order to get the most out of this life, and in order to release yourself from this fear pandemic, release yourself from the need for control, release yourself from struggling. Struggling, by definition, is noticing what's happening and wanting it to be different than it is. It's insane when you think about it. Why would we try to think our way out of something? Why would we try to do we think we're wizards? Are you a freaking wizard? Are you somehow gonna look at a cup of coffee and make it a cup of tea? You're not. You're not gonna be able to do that. You're not gonna be able to turn your cat into a dog. But you can accept your cat for being a cat, and then you can get a dog. You can pour out the coffee and get some tea, or pour out your tea and get some coffee. But first you have to accept where you are and accept what's really happening. Accept that you don't have control over everything. That's like this grandiose behavior that's just, it's not in alignment with your growth and with your opening and with your blossoming and with your feeling real connection with yourself, with others, with love. So that's my spiel for this Sunday. And I feel good about it. In addition to all of that, please remember to get outside every day, even if it's 5 minutes. If you can get your feet bare on the ground, do it. Please remember to get exercise, get your cardio going. Let's ward off depression. Let's make it through this winter without the light getting dimmer and dimmer inside of us. Let's make the transition into spring that's going to come in March be a little bit easier by mitigating how much darkness we let in right now. Thank you so much for being here. Namaste. Surrender to love.